I'm Nadia, your host of CCL TV's More Than Packages interview series. In this episode, we'll be in conversation with Adebayo Adeleke. He's a seasoned combat veteran of the United States Army with 20 years of service. Adebayo, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thank you for being here again. Now, looking at your background, I don't know how you fit in anything you do. You seem to have so many roles. You're a devoted father and husband, and you have about 5 different things that you do. You used to be an army in the United States Army. So how do you fit in all those things? Tell us a bit about you.
I think one thing that the Army actually taught us well is to have the ability to multitask. And so for that reason, that's why I've been able to wear many hats. But for the most important thing, it's not been easy. You know, first of all, I'm always a father first and an husband above all. Father and an husband, actually, that's the greatest role that I hold near and dear to my heart. And everything else I do is just on the side. I don't know how some of the people I work with will feel about that, but for what is what, and after leaving them, I have to go home. So being a father, being a devoted husband is a full-time job for me. But more importantly, is the fact of the matter is, I spent 20 years in the military, and my family has been my rock during those 20 years of multiple deployments in different parts of the world. I think I was telling someone out of my 20 years, I think I spent about 12 years out of that 20 years outside the confines of my home. So, it behoove me to actually put my family first above all. And, and my family has been the one that has been the hero in this whole journey, because they've been the one supporting me in and out through all my deployments around the world. You know, they've been the one holding sleepless night as I move around. I do all my things. And I'm retired now, so I try as much as possible, above all, to spend my quality time with them. So that's just pretty much me in a snapshot.
Well, take us back to the beginning. What made you get involved with the Army?
So funny enough, I born and raised in Nigeria. I came to meet my father in New York, and I was watching the Yankees and the Mets baseball game one evening, and I saw "Be All You Can Be." The Army had that on, anyone can join the military. So I went to the next recruiting station in Harlem, New York, and I signed up. I was like, you know what? They told me that they can pay for my college education. I said, why not? So I joined, and that was a good negotiation tool for my dad, because it is he wants me to go back to Nigeria to finish my education, my university education. So I said, like, you know what? I think the Army will have a better offer. They'll send me to school, and I don't have to incur any debt. And then I'd serve at the same time, and it was a win-win for both of us. So I joined. I joined on the premise of being able to do my 4 years of military obligation and then get out to go back to college. I really wanted to become a medical doctor at that particular point in time. But when I joined the military, I fell in love with it. The melting pot of different people from diverse background. Everybody, I bought into the brotherhood stuff. Everybody just fighting for a common cause. You're fighting for a cause that is greater than yourself. I met people that are friends. They became family. They'll lay down their lives for you. I was like, this is awesome. So I told my dad, I'm not coming home. So I, jettisoned my my medical ambition, and I followed the route of being a soldier. And being a soldier actually led me through my journey of supply chain and logistics, because that's how they had me put me, and I fell in love with it. I was like, this is quite intriguing. It's the pulse of every operation, the pulse of every engagement in the military. It depends on the supply chain and logistics. I was like, well, this is where I want to be. I want to be in the middle of the chaos. I want to be, what they call control chaos. I want to be in the midst of it. I want to be able to feel the pulse of it all. So I like the energy, the rush. And that's how I stayed there. And so far, so good. Even when I got out of the military, I'm still doing it. I love it.
So you were doing the supply chain logistics stuff at the same time as being in the Army, did you say?
Absolutely. So when I got in the Army, of course, every soldier is an infantry soldier, but at the same time, you also have your work. So my work at a particular point in time, when I was a soldier, I was a private. My work was being a logistical specialist. I was a forklift driver, dispatcher, warehouse operator. Then I moved into, distribution, and then I got into the maintenance part, and so I started from the beginning, from the bottom of the ladder, so to say, about logistics. So I understand everything from the get, because I learned the ropes from the military, and then I progressed as I changed my roles in the military, as I progressed further, as I see different bandwidth of supply chain and logistics, and I see how everything kind of fit in. Until I retire, I was still in the midst of it. So it's quite interesting as I come to understand how supply chain is. And funny enough, it's the same thing outside the military. It's the same kind of a shindig. You have all this from the beginning, from the bottom, from the tactical level to the operational level to the strategic level. The same thing in the commercial world as well. So nothing. I didn't miss a bit. I just transition. Knowledge transfer from one area to the other.
So you've climbed the ladder, like you said, through the army and through the supply chain. What is it that keeps you climbing that ladder, or keeps you passionate about those roles?
The fact of the matter, so there's one thing in the art of leading in supply chain in the army is the mission set, and also the people. Those are the two things that actually drive it. You have the people that you work with, and also the mission. The mission has always continued to be very interesting for me. As I move along the ranks, I changed roles. So when I became an officer, I had a different view of supply chain. I have, my responsibility differs. So because of that, I was like, wow, I love this. I really love this new challenge. And I began to progress from maintenance part of logistics into distribution part of logistics, to food service, to all those areas. And it's never ending. It's like an open-ended kind of a deal. And then as you progress along, you're beginning to have more responsibility, more oversight. I begin to see deeper. So as I move from the ground up, the view kind of widens, just like the lens. And so the people I work with, you always have aches and bumps on the road, but just the people and the mission set keeps me going, because you just can't, you can't know it all. It's just vast. Even until I retire, there's too much more to know. But it's just awesome that, wow, there's so much to know. There's so much to be able to contribute. And that's what kept me going.
And so much must have changed if you've been in the industry for that long. Tell us about the changes that you've seen along your route.
Absolutely. I grew up in the military, and also in the civilian world, the commercial world, so to say, is now dinosaur these days. Now we have the infusion of data, we have the infusion of artificial intelligence into the way we do, our decision-making process, our decision cycle is more faster than before. The risk is more. Now we have multi-headed risk that we have to deal with. Before, our risks are quite, you can actually enumerate it, but now it's just endless. And then you have the use of technology. Just the dependent. You cannot have a supply chain and logistics framework these days without having one or two things, without having technological framework with it. So a lot has changed. I remember when I joined the military, we're still using these, we're using, how do I call it? We're using what now called drones. It was very, very new then, was actually very predominant to the military. But now it's like everywhere, everyone has drones in their hands. I remember when we started, we were using pluggers, but now everyone has GPS. It's actually GPS on your watch. So things have really evolved. Now you can map a lot of things. Back then, overlaying and mapping was an afterthought, very advanced, but now you actually can do it at the palm of a palm. So things are really, like 100 times faster than what used to do now. Decision cycle used to be fast. Now it's faster than ever. If you blink, you're already late. So all those things, a lot of things have changed. Both on the infrastructures that support logistics and supply chain then and now, but some things haven't changed as well. The rudiments haven't changed. What makes a decent or solid supply chain, what is still the same globally. So certain things do not change, but certain things have changed. A lot of things have changed. And I anticipate in the next 10 years, what we have now is going to be archaic. So yeah, change is inevitable.
So what is the most important thing in a supply chain?
People.
The people. So, digital transformation has to, can change and evolve, but at the heart of it are the people that will always be there.
Absolutely. People are everywhere you go. And in the heart of the people is leadership. So you can't have one without the other. Every time you have people, you have to lead them. You have to provide oversight. Somebody has to take care of them. Even in the heart of all the digital stuff, frameworks that we have people behind it. So ability, the old call technology framework that we depend on, is all people behind it. Who wrote the code? Who wrote the framework? Who developed the ERP? If anything happens, who are you going to call on? Who are the developers involved? The graphic designers, the content writers, everything, they're the people. So it's just the fact of the matter is the way we address people or the people involvement differs, but people are still at the heart and mind of supply chain. And I don't think that's going to change for the near future. It has been from the time immemorial till now. So, and they'll always continue to be. So understanding people, how to relate with people, and still at the center of it all. And if you don't, for some reason, really that, I'm an introvert, extrovert, whatever that you are, you just have to understand how to deal with people. If you understand how to deal with people, half of the battle is won. Oftentimes, because of COVID, that's exacerbated the fact that a lot of us are working remotely now, but still, dealing with people will take you far, far, far than anything else in supply chain and logistic world.
Well, talking of people and leaders, your Unfettered podcast, you interview a lot of industry leaders. Tell us about that. Tell us, how do you approach those people to come on your podcast, and what's the thoughts behind it?
Unfettered Podcast is a project of mine that I started over a year ago. And the reason for it is because there's so much part to me besides supply chain and leadership that I do. There's this part that I want to discover a lot of things about people, the journey. We are human beings and we're driven differently. We're driven, our environment has a huge impact on us. How we grew up has a huge impact on us. People around us has a huge impact of our experiences that we shared has a huge impact of us. And the journey and the path that we take has a huge impact of the outcome. So I'm quite intrigued about the success and the failures, different people as I meet along. I've met some very interesting people in my so-called adult life, and I really want to share their story. I really believe that, so oftentimes I tell somebody this story, people are like, no, you're lying. I was like, no, I'm not. No, these are things that people go through. So now as I go along, I just meet people that I've enjoyed their work, people that I've been I've been following their work for quite some time. I just want them to share their story, what actually drives them, what are their successes, what are their failures. Somebody out there might learn it, a thing or two. And if I'm able to impact one life, that is enough. That is enough. And for me, that is quite satisfying. So now I just interview stuff about things. And unfettered is anything, it can be business, it can be life, it can be, your faith, it can be your belief system. And a funny thing about it is, one other thing that I really wanted to push out to the Unfettered podcast is that we live in a world whereby our voices is being kind of snatched away. You cannot articulately state the way you feel before somebody has canceled you out. So I really want people to be able to state what their belief is and why they believe that. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person, but it's just the way you believe. And sometimes most of the guys that I interview, I don't share their views, but I respect it. I really don't have to share your views, but I respect it. And because we live in a world whereby people's belief system and what you think is right is being shuffled down other people's throat. And often I believe it's not right. If I don't share your thought process on this, I respect it, but you don't have to make it like you have to accept. I don't.
It's probably quite nice for the viewer or the listener to be able to have that unbiased opinion, though, and be able to hear the thoughts of the person on your podcast and yours that may be challenging theirs.
Exactly. And more importantly, I want people to talk freely and explain why they believe certain ways and explain why it is necessary for us to have diverse opinions. You might have one or two things to learn from me. And to be honest with you, I've learned so much just meeting people and having conversations with them. So much can be done. Just having an open mind. When you have an open mind and when you have a conversation with people with nothing attached to you, just having the conversation, you'll be surprised how much you learn from it. So for me, it's like a journey of learning and unlearning and relearning for me as well.
Do you have a favorite podcast that you can share with our viewers that they could go and have a listen?
You know what? Every of my guests they're unique in their nature. So it's honestly, I think is going to be disingenuous, because for me to approach, they all have unique stories, and there's only one story or the other. I will employ everyone to go on the unfettered podcast.com, and just, you can find it on any of your favorite podcast platform, and just download it. Honestly, it is, is it the first one? Is it the second one? I mean, there's so much to it, and there's so much story to it, and there's more coming to it, because I think, next week, in 2 weeks' time, we took a break for a while, but next week time I've interviewed the former president of Nigeria. Wow. He has his own spin to it, and so there's so much to it, and more is coming about it. So for me, it's very hard, and it's going to be, it's going to be disingenuous anyway to any of my guests. Be like, you pick mine, you didn't pick mine. No, but honestly,
Well, there's so many different characters. When I was listening to them myself, there's so many different characters and such interesting topics that, it's difficult to choose one. So I'm sure our viewers will have a listen to Unfettered podcast, and they can give you some feedback as well. Thank you so much. So, Adebayo, how did you get involved in the cross-border e-commerce industry? And tell us about Pantote Solutions.
So Pantote Solution is my own consulting company. Actually, Pantote Solution Adebayo Adeleke LLC. Those two consulting companies, I birthed it from my experience when I left the military. It's because I believe that there's so many things that we do right in the military that needs to be transferred to the commercial world. And cross-border e-commerce is what I'm quite used to, because I haven't done supply chain and logistics with the military outside the confines of the United States. I've dealt with all kinds of nuances in the industry. So I'm bringing that knowledge to par, and to be able to, share it with a lot of, folks out there, ways to actually, combat some of the issues they're having. Funny enough, the U.S. military has been around for over 200 years, and there are certain things they've been doing right. For an organization to span that long, I think the U.S. Army is as old as the United States as a country. So, and certain things that they've been doing for so long, and I think regardless of the time and era, we'll find ourselves, those things remain like their true compass. And I share those kind of attributes in my consulting work. So that's how I got involved in it.
Yeah. And there's a couple of other companies that you consult for. Tell us about those and how you've got involved with those.
So iPod Consulting and some other consulting companies, I share my knowledge. They call me on one or two. I'm also a consultant for CIPS in the UK over there, because of the sheer knowledge I have in areas of geopolitical supply chain. And geopolitical supply chain is something that most people don't talk about, is the impact of geopolitics on our supply chain. And, that's the interest of my background in being a military man and having to deal with a lot of geopolitical issues, across different borders, and moving of goods and services across different borders. And those things are the same everywhere you go, and wherever people are, and whenever people are the one at the center of your supply chain, especially they are multicultural. There's a sociological and anthropological aspect of supply chain that people don't talk about, dealing with people and whatnot. So those are the things I bring to board. And the fact of the matter is, people kind of gravitate towards it, and it's a different niche that nobody has really touched. So I kind of own that space, and they love it. So I share my knowledge, my writings, and my notes that I've collected over the course of 20 plus years, and I share with them, and they found value in it.
Well, yeah, so much experience coming from what you're talking about. Now, also, you touched on politics. Now, without going into it too deeply, how has the US political landscape affected you and the leaders around you?
It has. It's always, politics is everything. It's our way of life. A man is a political animal. So over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of people, a lot of behavioral change has been around people around the world. But the true leaders have to be anchored in what they believe to be their true attributes. And that's what has really helped the United States and leaders around us to be able to navigate the last few years. And I think upcoming years as well, because we've seen a lot of things because of what has happened in the past few years, not only in the United States, in UK and other parts of the world as well. We've seen the rise in populism, nationalism. We've seen the rise in the cancel culture. We've seen extremism on both ends, both on the liberal side and the conservative side. We've seen all these things coming together and having effect on our lives. And if they have effect on our lives, they have effect on what we demand for. If it has a demand on what we demand for, it does have a direct impact on supply chain because demand drives supply. So all these things are quite involving around how we do things. So those are, it's quite intriguing if you look at it that way. People just don't understand that the sociological, the social-cultural aspect of our lives affect our demand in a way that we don't even think about. And if it affects our demand, then definitely affect our supply. And if it affects our supply, then of course I have a job to do.
Of course, yeah. And how did you push through during COVID? You know, it's affected us all. It's affected businesses. It's affected people personally. You're obviously quite a motivational person. How did you get through the pandemic?
You know, when I was growing up, my mom used to tell me something that no condition is permanent. And I mean, that was one of the nuggets she always dropped, when we were growing up. Now it's very truthful to it. I mean, these two shall pass, so it's just a matter of time. I mean, with the amount of smart people we have in this world, COVID will surely pass. It's just a matter of time. So what we have to do in the meantime is to hold and just hold. And that oftentimes can be challenging. How do you hold when you don't know when the storm will pass? So what you have to do in the meantime is to look at other people that share your views, because you really don't want to be around people that can be a drowner. You want to be around people that share your views of this idea of this eternal, optimism that, things will be passed until future pass. And, you create a lot of things and I think I was most productive during COVID. I was able to use the time to dig deeper, to assist a lot of businesses, to consult for them, to see how their supply chain is going to be after COVID is over. Because COVID, yes, you're in the midst of it, but you have to look beyond it, and see the reason why they actually failed during COVID. And it's good to fail. And I think COVID kind of stretched a lot of supply chains globally. It stretched some that have been into risk management, but it broke a lot of people that weren't into risk management. So ability to stretch your supply chain is okay because it will always contrast back. But inability to be able to, for the supply chain stretch to come back is a problem. And so that's why I found joy in helping small businesses to be able to, contract by their supply chain and be able to drive on. It wasn't easy. It was very emotional for a lot of companies out there that I consulted for. Just looking at how they've been able to just stand the truth. But the thing about some of these businesses is that one thing that we don't give credit for business owners is that they are very resilient. They're very resilient, especially. So I saw a lot of resiliency. I saw a lot of true heart, about, it was, and that in itself actually kept me going. Like, wow, look at these people. They're doing it. They're doing it day in, day out. So yeah, COVID. Yeah, what do you say?
Sorry, I said, yeah, they had to be resilient. There's so many times that the restrictions were lifted and then we went back in. Yeah. Companies and people had to dig deep to find that resilience and bounce back.
Exactly. And if they can do it because their life depends on it, then who am I to be over there boo-hooing in one corner and crying on myself? No, I have to assist them. Okay, if you want to do this, let's do this. And from it's such a beautiful experience, having to help coach and mentor a lot of businesses along the path and seeing them succeed in the process. It's just awesome. And, in as much as COVID is bad and whatnot, but in some sense, it gives a lot of insight and depth into the way we do business. And it helped a lot of organizations to reshape their business operations. And in that, I'm very grateful for that, because if this didn't happen, a lot of them will not know that they have problems. And if they don't know they have problems, they won't be able to solve it. So now this particular event, as bad as it is, because it's still going on, was they were able to use that opportunity. There's always a silver lining. And I think the silver lining in this whole process, the fact that from the business perspective is that it helped them to kind of take a step back relook into their operation, fix whatever it is. So if anything happens down the road, yes, they'll be shocked. Yes, there'll be shock in their system, but they won't break them. So, and I think for me, that has been the greatest takeaway from COVID for me.
Yeah, and trying to always find that silver lining, I guess, as well. Now, within the supply chain, what are your views on sustainability?
It's huge, actually. I think the next 2 days I will do a write-up. The IPCC ARC report came out yesterday, and it was damning. I mean, we are going to, if you look at what I digested from those words, it's very, very concerning. Actually, it's downright like we're all going to die if we don't take action. I am very concerned about it. Sustainability is at the heart of my risk management theories and mitigating strategy. We've been talking about it, but now it's time to take action. I mean, everyone has to take action on it. It is the next frontier. Actually, it is the current frontier. It should be the current frontier and the next frontier in supply chain, because if our existence on Earth depends on it. We might pass through it, but what about generation behind us? What are we doing to make the world a better place? And I think we owe it to the generation behind us to make an amends to the way we treat ourselves, we treat the current climate, and make it a better place. So I am for it. I'm always for it, and I'm championing more than ever. Most of my strategies among my clients, I'm going to be pushing sustainability as one of, they already have it, but they have to actually double down on it, because it's a way of the future. If every one of us can reduce our carbon footprint, I think our world will be a better place. But right now, it's not looking good, and that is not a good thing.
Well, hopefully that stark message will actually hit home with people that aren't really thinking about it at the moment, and will make people realise that we really do need to do something.
Absolutely. I think we need to echo that report more than everything else. I know some people are skeptical about science, but the same science gave us vaccine for COVID. Who are we not to believe science now? If science is telling us that there will be a continuous increase in temperature because of our whole human interaction, then we need to figure out a way. And supply chain, as I believe, is at the heart of it all, because, as I said, what drives human interaction, our current interaction that has made the world what it is today, is our demand on it. If we can shape our demand, then we can shape our supply, because there are two both sides of the coin. So my plea is, if we can help to shape our demand, definitely as supply chain, we can help shape the supply and make the world a better place by reducing the carbon footprint. I have taken the challenge on, and I believe my colleagues out there are taking the challenge on as well. And we'll make it a personal plea as well, and a personal journey to make sure that everything that we do in all our processes, in all our consulting work, will make sustainability a priority.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope that our viewers and the listeners of your podcast as well all take note of that, and everyone can do their bit for the planet. Now, lastly, Adebayo, can you tell us, if you were deserted on an island, what book or album would you take with you?
Wow.
And you're not allowed to take your phone.
All right. Is it Rhapsody by Queen?
Oh, yeah. Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah.
Yes, by Queen. That would be I love it. The book I'll take with, because I'm A Single Point of Failure by Gary Lynch is my hero on supply chain risk management. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
That's one to look out for then. Gary Lynch, did you say?
Gary Lynch.
Gary Lynch.
Yeah. He's one of the top thought leaders in supply chain and supply chain risk management. And the reason why I picked supply chain risk management as part of my core competence, because supply chain is such a huge industry. I mean, you can drop a pin in there, you will find yourself for hundreds of years. But supply chain risk management is such a part that people don't pay particular attention to. They just say risk. It drives everything we do. So looking at it from the risk perspective, you'll be able to see other touching points in the supply chain industry. So you have to know a lot about circularity, sustainability, and to help to mitigate whatever your clients need. So and Gary Lynch has been the forerunner in that. I read his book. I use his books in my lectures. I use his books in my consulting world, and he's a great hero of mine. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll have a look out for that. Thank you so much for your time today. Some really, really interesting points and topics. So thank you for being with us. And thanks for joining CCL. And remember, CCL are much more than packages.
Thank you much.